The story begins by showing the interior of the Great Zhou Empire's palace, where a young man named Zhou Yuan is groaning in pain as the dragon poison embedded in his body starts to activate. However, thanks to the help of the queen who performs a blood transfusion, Zhou Yuan manages to subdue the pain. Upon examination, the physician informs the king named Zhao Qing and the queen named Qin Yu that their son has survived. However, the dragon poison will resurface in 3 years, and the only way to suppress it is by opening Zhou Yuan's 8 meridians, which have yet to appear. It is explained that the realm levels include 8 Great Meridian, Qi Nourishing, Heavenly Gate, Alpha Origin, Divine Dwelling, Heavenly Sun, Nascent Source, Law Domain, Saint, and God. Some of these levels have different stages. Unfortunately, the blood transfusions performed by the queen to save her son cannot continue, as Zhou Yuan's dragon poison, which activates once every 3 years, will grow stronger. Therefore, they must find another method to ensure his survival. At the same time, Zhou Yuan, aware and hearing that he has only 3 years left, asks for an explanation regarding the dragon poison that causes him pain and resides in his body. Feeling there is nothing more to hide, Zhao Qing begins to explain. He says that in this era, there is a great empire experiencing rapid progress. They have many Genesis masters, wealth, and abundant resources. They are called the Great Wu Empire. In fact, in the past, the Great Wu Empire was a subordinate that protected the Great Zhou Empire. However, 10 years ago, Great Wu started a rebellion and managed to corner the Great Zhou Empire in just 1 year. The rebellion coincided with Zhou Yuan's birth. At that time, Zhao Qing was very happy because when his son was born, he was blessed with the legendary Holy Dragon's Luck. Zhou Yuan, as a baby, had already opened his 8 meridians and was just waiting to reach the nourishing realm. However, his father's joy over his talented son did not last long. The appearance of snake and bird spirits indicated that people from the Great Wu Empire had arrived. The attack led by Wu Huang, the traitor, was because he knew and had been waiting for the day when Zhao Qing's son would be born with the Holy Dragon's Luck. Apparently, the Great Wu Empire had an ancient prophecy stating that when the snake devours the dragon, the Great Wu Empire would reach its peak. This shows that Wu Huang's betrayal was solely to seize the Holy Dragon's Luck born in the Zhou family. Additionally, the birth of Zhao Qing's son coincided with the birth of Wu Huang's son, who deliberately arranged for his wife to give birth at the same time as Zhao Qing's child. It is said that when babies are born at the same time, they can devour the luck possessed by the other baby. Wu Huang also intentionally allowed the Zhou family to survive until now, just to wait for these moments. Ultimately, due to the significant difference in combat power, the Zhou family had to face their downfall when the enemy managed to breach the gates of the Zhou Imperial Palace and incapacitate the military guards. When the Zhou side was in despair, Wu Huang opened a negotiation session. As long as Zhao Qing was willing to surrender the Holy Dragon's Luck, Wu Huang swore never to set foot in the Great Zhou Empire for 100 years. But if Zhao Qing refused, Wu Huang would immediately start a mass slaughter of the family and everyone in the Great Zhou Empire. Hearing this, Zhao Qing was forced to reluctantly accept the agreement for the future survival of the Great Zhou Empire. During the ritual session, Wu Huang then extracted the Holy Dragon from baby Zhou Yuan's body to feed his bird and snake spirits. Thus, the snake and bird spirits gained power equivalent to that of a phoenix and a dragon, which would bring the Great Wu Empire a prosperous and thriving life as foretold by the prophecy. The Holy Dragon's Luck absorbed from Zhou Yuan eventually turned into a dragon of hatred, and to prevent future problems, Wu Huang sealed Zhou Yuan's 8 meridians. This is why Zhou Yuan has not been able to open his meridians until now. Seeing his mother in poor health, Zhou Yuan learns that his mother has been transfusing blood to keep him alive from the dragon poison that activates every 3 years. However, this method has taken a toll on her, who is now expected to live less than 10 more years. To give his wife a longer life, Zhao Qing has long been searching for a treasure with such an effect. But, despite his efforts, Zhao Qing has yet to find it. On the other hand, Zhou Yuan is determined to become a Genesis master and grow stronger. He is convinced that after the promised 100-year period ends, Wu Huang will return to cause trouble in the Great Zhou Empire. Seeing his son's strong determination, Zhao Qing pledges full support. Even though Zhou Yuan cannot open his 8 meridians, he can still become strong by training with Genesis Rune Qi. Perhaps mastering Genesis Rune to a higher level could allow Zhou Yuan to suppress the dragon poison in his body. Genesis Rune is an alternative cultivation method for Genesis Masters, apart from using Genesis Chi. Created from patterns of lines and strokes, the more patterns created, the stronger a Genesis Rune becomes. It turned out, there are several levels in using Genesis Rune, and for now, Zhou Yuan is still learning the first level at his academy, which is Genesis Item. This Genesis Rune is drawn using a special Genesis brush and specific media like tablets, scrolls, and jade stones. After the class ended, a woman named Yue approached Zhou Yuan, whom she held in high regard because Zhou Yuan had previously helped her obtain medicine when her grandfather was ill and she had no money. Additionally, Yue is said to be a very talented student. Although Yue has only been at the academy for a year, she has already managed to open her third meridian, indicating that her level is above the average students there. Zhou Yuan then asked Yue to work harder because he had already arranged for her to get a slot in the major exam to be held in 2 months. However, in the midst of their conversation, a student named Su Lin suddenly laughed and said that Yue had lost her slot in the exam. As Su Lin played with the jade pendant that should have belonged to her, a man named Ling Feng informed them that Su Lin had previously mocked Zhou Yuan for always staying at home. Feeling indignant, Yue immediately challenged Su Lin to a fight. If she lost, Su Lin would give up her jade pendant, and if Su Lin lost, he would apologize to Zhou Yuan. Unfortunately, in the fight, Yue lost because Su Lin unexpectedly used a Genesis weapon. Although Ling Feng seemed like a hero defending the truth, he was actually the mastermind behind the incident. Meanwhile, to retrieve Yue's jade pendant so she could take the exam, Zhou Yuan challenged Su Lin to a fight, putting his Genesis jade stone on the line. Of course, Su Lin, who thought Zhou Yuan was weak because he couldn't open his meridians, gladly accepted the challenge. Shortly after, the fight was about to begin, with many spectators believing that Zhou Yuan would lose to Su Lin because he had opened his second meridian, while Zhou Yuan had not opened his first meridian and was only equipped with a Genesis rune. Before the fight began, Su Lin provoked Zhou Yuan a bit, but he immediately told him to stop talking and allowed Su Lin to attack first. When their attacks clashed, it felt like Su Lin was hitting hard steel because Zhou Yuan was using steel skin. Su Lin's growing anger made him open his second meridian in his next attack. After opening his second meridian, Su Lin's speed and strength increased significantly. To counter this, Zhou Yuan used the Genesis rune to lighten his body and ended up winning when their fists clashed, and the prince used the power rune. Because of this, the spectators were amazed at how Zhou Yuan could defeat Su Lin, who had opened his second meridian, with just 3 Genesis runes. Thus, Yue regained her opportunity to take the major exam. Not long after, there was only a little time left before the major exam. Zhou Yuan then offered Yue resources to increase her strength, but she immediately refused. She felt the prince had already given her too much help, as Zhou Yuan was the one who had brought her to this place and changed her fate. Yue did not want to continue relying on him, and Zhou Yuan, understanding this, quickly changed the topic. Elsewhere, Su Lin, who had failed in his task, had to face punishment from Ling Feng, who refused to listen to his excuses, and in the end, Su Lin was beaten. Unexpectedly, this incident was monitored by a man in white named Qiyu. Meanwhile, the ancestral land secret room of the Zhou family was where Zhou Yuan and his father were currently staying. It was said that there was a hidden secret in this place related to the potential to greatly enhance one's strength, and those who managed to unlock it were said to be able to bring the Zhou family into an era of prosperity in the future. However, Zhao Qing was puzzled because, from ancient times until now, no one from the Zhou family had succeeded in unlocking the mystery of this place. Zhou Yuan then dripped his blood onto the floor, which was adorned with thick patterns and lines, but nothing seemed to happen immediately after he let his blood drip. However, not long after, Zhou Yuan's blood was suddenly absorbed, activating an ancient formation. Because of this, large stones unleashed several yellow lightning strikes towards Zhou Yuan. In a panic, Zhao Qing speculated that this might be a trial his son had to undergo, and he couldn't provide any assistance, as Zhou Yuan was now within an impenetrable formation. The intensity of the yellow lightning directed at him increased over time. Although he was knocked down after taking several hits, Zhou Yuan got back up. He felt he couldn't die here, considering he still had an important role in the Great Zhou Empire. Rising again, this time Zhou Yuan didn't dodge but accepted all the yellow lightning coming his way. The overwhelming surge of energy created a boom. Strangely, After the explosion, Zhao Qing couldn't find his son's body there, as Zhou Yuan had been thrown into another world. Shortly after being transported to this unknown place, Zhou Yuan was approached by a woman named Yao Yao, who left him in awe. When Zhou Yuan introduced himself, Yao Yao didn't respond. However, Zhou Yuan's presence there aligned with what a figure referred to as an old man by Yao Yao had predicted. As she was about to leave, Yao Yao invited Tun Tun, an animal, to come home with her. Initially, Zhou Yuan thought Tun Tun was just a cute, ordinary animal, but Tun Tun turned out to be far from ordinary when it displayed some of its power. Besides taking Tun Tun, Yao Yao also invited Zhou Yuan to come along if he didn't want to miss a great opportunity. After arriving at her place, Zhou Yuan met an old man named Zhang Zhou Yuan. In his mind, Zhang Yuan thought he didn't have much time left, but the meaning of his words was still unknown. After casting a sharp gaze at Zhou Yuan, Zhang Yuan immediately recognized him as a child with the holy dragon's luck. Unfortunately, the luck of the dragon had been taken from him and transformed into a poisoned dragon filled with hatred. Realizing that the old man before him was not just any ordinary elder, Zhou Yuan introduced himself as a member of the Zhou family. Again, Zhang Yuan quickly understood Zhou Yuan's intention to seek help in solving the problem of his still unopened meridians. For Zhou Yuan, even though he currently had nothing worth showing off, he was confident that the old man had been waiting for his arrival to provide assistance. Suddenly, Zhang Yuan grabbed Zhou Yuan and asked what qualifications he possessed that warranted such a wait. As before, Zhou Yuan felt that Zhang Yuan already had his answer. Therefore, he answered his question without fear, and then Zhang Yuan released him. It turned out, Zhang Yuan was trying to scare Zhou Yuan, but it didn't seem to work. However, according to Yao Yao, Zhou Yuan's body had previously trembled violently, indicating that he had suppressed his fear in front of Zhang Yuan. After that, Zhang Yuan revealed that he could indeed help Zhou Yuan open his 8 meridians. However, there was a condition that Zhou Yuan had to take Yao Yao out of this place and protect her. Apparently, Zhang Yuan was about to leave, so Yao Yao could no longer stay there. Although Zhou Yuan was still weak, Zhang Yuan believed that in the future that he could have enough power to protect Yao Yao. After thinking for a moment, Zhou Yuan agreed to Zhang Yuan's offer. Even though he currently lacked the strength to protect Yao Yao, Zhou Yuan vowed to shield her with his life if anyone tried to harm her. Once both parties reached an agreement, Zhang Yuan used a bit of his power to tear a dimensional space right beneath Zhou Yuan, causing him to fall into it. The world Zhou Yuan entered looked like a place filled with tree branches and had a horror-like atmosphere. Shortly after wandering around, Zhou Yuan was suddenly attacked by a black-red creature. He destroyed the creature using the power rune. However, after defeating it, Zhou Yuan felt as though his meridian and soul were being eroded. The battle didn't end there, as 2 more similar creatures appeared, and again Zhou Yuan defeated them with relative ease. Unexpectedly, more of these strange creatures continued to appear in greater numbers. As the endless enemies drained his energy, Zhou Yuan decided to exit through the tear he had entered from. Facing such opponents would only deplete his energy. But this was not an easy task, as Zhou Yuan had to fight his way through the enemies blocking his path. After the long journey, Zhou Yuan was still far from the exit, and the effects of the rune he was using were almost depleted. Additionally, a serpent emitting hatred energy appeared, targeting him. After destroying the serpent with his fists, its body turned into hatred energy, further eroding Zhou Yuan's soul. Before being completely consumed, Zhou Yuan strengthened his resolve, and he would not stop until the evil threatening those around him were eliminated. When Zhou Yuan regained consciousness, Zhang Yuan asked him to feel his body's current state. Following his instructions, Zhou Yuan could sense that his 8 meridians had now appeared. It turned out, the place Zhou Yuan had previously been was the Sea of Consciousness, specifically the area around his sealed meridians. Zhang Yuan then explained that Zhou Yuan's meridians had been formed since birth. However, due to a past incident, his 8 meridians had retreated to the deepest part of his body for self-protection. This is why Zhou Yuan couldn't feel his meridians all this time. Apparently, the way to truly activate them was to put Zhou Yuan in critical situations, causing the 8 meridians to activate automatically. As before, if Zhou Yuan's meridians hadn't activated, he would have died by now. If that was the only way, Zhou Yuan was willing to take the risk as long as he achieved the desired results. Zhang Yuan then gave Zhou Yuan some praise, but warned him not to be too pleased. Previously, Zhou Yuan's meridians had opened, but only briefly, and now they were closed again. If Zhou Yuan wanted to reopen his meridians, the method he would need to use would be more challenging compared to the methods used by most people. On the other hand, even if Zhou Yuan fails to open his meridians, it wouldn't be too problematic. For instance, Yao Yao, due to special reasons, cannot use Genesis Qi at all. However, her understanding of Genesis Rune is already at a very high level. Therefore, Yao Yao can become a teacher for Zhou Yuan in this regard later on. From what Chang Yuan said, Zhou Yuan concluded that although he has the opportunity to open his meridians and cultivate, it will take a lot of time before he can truly protect Yao Yao. At least during his weak period, Zhou Yuan doesn't want Yao Yao to end up protecting him instead. Understanding his intention, Chang Yuan lifted Zhou Yuan with his power and intended to give him some training in a qi cultivation technique that could help him cultivate. This technique was called the dragon breathing technique, which was now being transferred into his body. Additionally, Chang Yuan also noticed that Zhou Yuan had used a Genesis rune. Therefore, he asked if Zhou Yuan was also interested in this. Apparently, Zhou Yuan had an understanding of the Genesis rune, which Chang Yuan considered a good thing. This led him to look into his soul, intending to grant him a soul formation technique. The skill transfer performed by Chang Yuan made Zhou Yuan instantly understand a technique called Primal Chaos Divine. Moreover, as a first-time gift between master and disciple, Chang Yuan also gave him a Genesis weapon called the Tian Yuan Pin. This item was at the same level, a fact that greatly surprised Zhou Yuan. Essentially, Genesis weapons are divided into 3 levels: Xian, Heaven, and Sane. Even his father's flame spear was only at the high Xian level, while the Tian Yuan Pin was at the highest level. Unfortunately, the pin had suffered severe damage in a battle, so it was not very strong now. However, if Zhou Yuan could feed it the souls of Genesis beasts, the pin's power would gradually recover. When the 9 patterns on it are activated, its power as a Sane-level Genesis weapon will make its user a powerful Sane Genesis warrior. After providing everything Zhou Yuan needed, Chang Yuan hoped they could meet again in the future if possible. As for Yao Yao, Chang Yuan gave her a jade pendant. He then warned Yao Yao to be cautious because if the jade ever burns, it means they have found her. Unfortunately, Chang Yuan did not explain who they were, as the most important thing was that Zhou Yuan was instructed to ensure that Yao Yao did not unseal and use her Genesis Qi. If that happened, disaster would befall them. From this, Zhou Yuan concluded that Yao Yao must have an extraordinary identity. However, for now, he didn't need to investigate further. After that, Chang Yuan suddenly asked Yao Yao, Tun Tun, and Zhou Yuan to leave the place. He also mentioned that it was possible they would never meet again. Before parting, Zhou Yuan promised to do his utmost to protect Yao Yao no matter what happens. Then, they were sent by Chang Yuan to the world where Zhou Yuan lived. Shortly after Zhou Yuan left, a storm vortex appeared in the sky, accompanied by the descent of 3 powerful entities with a massive explosion. Their arrival was so shocking that one of them referred to Chang Yuan as the Grand Emperor. It was clear that they were not here for a casual visit, as they immediately demanded that Chang Yuan surrender that person or face death. Upon hearing this, Chang Yuan laughed and challenged them, eager to see who would die first. Along with that, Chang Yuan displayed his power with golden energy radiating from the rune patterns all over his body. Eventually, an intense battle ensued. The fight between these powerful beings took place even in outer space, destroying nearby planets. Despite facing 3 powerful opponents at once, Chang Yuan managed to dominate the battle until the end. While Chang Yuan continued to fight, Zhou Yuan and Yao Yao had just arrived at the ancestral land. At that moment, Yao Yao was confident that the reason Chang Yuan sent her away was because there were powerful enemies targeting her. If Yao Yao later learned that Chang Yuan was in danger, she promised to avenge those who had harmed him. Returning with Yao Yao and recounting everything that happened in the mysterious world of the ancestral land, Zhou Yuan made his mother very happy. Qin Yu then asked her son to eat well to replenish his energy. Similarly, Yao Yao was asked to eat a soup made with Genesis beast meat, a secret recipe of the empire. Unexpectedly, what interested Yao Yao was not the soup, but the intoxicating wine being poured by Zhao Qing, even though it was not suitable for a young lady her age. Noticing Qin Yu's coughing, Yao Yao quickly understood that Zhou Yuan's mother's vitality was declining. Because of this, Yao Yao offered a jade lotus flower that could restore her health and lock the lost essence in her body. Initially, Qin Yu refused because the plant was extremely valuable. However, she eventually accepted it after Zhou Yuan promised to repay Yao Yao's kindness in any way possible. Shortly after, a guard reported that the leader of the Great Zhou Palace, Chu Tianyang, had come to see the king. At that moment, Chu Tianyang stated that there were 4 academies in the Great Zhou Empire. Academies A, B, C, and D. Among them, the 2 strongest were controlled by King Qi, and Academy B, also controlled by King Qi, had won the annual examination twice in a row. It turned out, Chu Tianyang was worried that if Academy B won again in the upcoming exam, their dean, Xu Hong, would use the victory as a reason to remove him from his position as the palace leader and allow King Qi to fully control the Great Zhou Palace ruled by Zhao Qing. Because of this, Zhao Qing then assumed that King Qi must have betrayed and secretly collaborated with the Great Wu Empire to take full control from within. In the midst of the conversation, Zhou Yuan reassured his father not to worry, as they could deal with the traitors at any time. Zhou Yuan also asked Chu Tianyang who had the greatest chance of winning in the upcoming exam. According to Chu Tianyang, the likely winner would be Qi Yu from Academy B, who had already opened his 6th meridian. The second place could potentially be Yu Wei, who Zhou Yuan had brought into the academy, as she was a talented candidate with a high chance of winning. But Qi Yu had tried to win her favor to get her to join Academy B. Hearing this, Zhou Yuan asked Chu Tianyang not to worry too much, as after the major exam, he would persuade Yue to join Academy A. According to Chu Tianyang, this would be difficult because Academy A was known to only accept the top 10 students in the entrance exam. That was the only way to join that academy, while those outside the top 10 could only choose from the other 3 academies. It turned out that not only would Yue join Academy A, but Zhou Yuan also had high confidence in his ability to get into Academy A. He planned to achieve this without any insider help from someone like Chu Tianyang. Therefore, he was determined to prove his worth. The scene shifts to Zhou Yuan walking with Yue, discussing preparations for the upcoming major exam. During this conversation, Zhou Yuan tried to persuade Yue to join Academy A. Fortunately, Yue didn't mind but stated she would only join Academy A if Zhou Yuan also got in. As the result, Zhou Yuan would need to train harder than usual. Meanwhile, Ling Feng, visibly annoyed by Yue's closeness with Zhou Yuan, was approached by Qi Yu, who remarked that Zhou Yuan, being someone of high status, was very kind to her. Because of this, Ling Feng would have no chance of winning Yue's heart. However, considering Yue was highly talented, Ling Feng felt she was not a good match for Zhou Yuan, who relied solely on his status. Qi Yu then agreed with Ling Feng, noting that Zhou Yuan seemed useless and didn't belong in the same place as Ling Feng. If it weren't for his status as a prince, it would indeed be unfortunate to see someone as talented as Yue caring deeply for someone as useless as Zhou Yuan. Apparently, Qi Yu had also invited Yue to join Academy B, but she stated she would only go where Zhou Yuan went. Therefore, Ling Feng only needed to ensure Zhou Yuan failed the upcoming major exam completely. That way, Yue might be drawn to him. According to Ling Feng, defeating Zhou Yuan would be easy, but the problem was that the opponents in the exam would be matched according to their level. This meant Ling Feng would likely face Zhou Yuan. Unexpectedly, Qi Yu had arranged the exam so that if Zhou Yuan won the first and second rounds by luck, Ling Feng would face him in the third round. Qi Yu also offered Ling Feng help with the condition that he would join Academy B afterward. After Qi Yu left, Ling Feng hoped Zhou Yuan wouldn't meet him during the exam because he would humiliate Zhou Yuan for life. In preparation for the exam, Zhou Yuan trained using the dragon absorption technique given by Chang Yuan. This dragon technique, adapted for human use, involves absorbing Genesis Qi from heaven and earth. To master this technique, Zhou Yuan first had to practice the 98 dragon forging technique. After several months of training, Zhou Yuan felt his hard work had paid off as he successfully learned the dragon absorption technique. Nearby, Yao Yao, sensing something wrong with Zhou Yuan's technique, let Tun Tun demonstrate the correct dragon absorption technique. Apparently, Tun Tun was no ordinary animal, as he could also use the human-adapted dragon absorption technique. Zhou Yuan was impressed by what he saw, while Yao Yao asked him to observe and compare his movements with Tun Tun's while using the technique. With a single glance, Zhou Yuan could see the difference lay in the breathing. The key to the dragon absorption technique was the perfect combination of breath and inhalation that triggered the technique's power. At that moment, Tun Tun's movements were clearly superior to Zhou Yuan's, as he could start and end the breathing perfectly and smoothly, generating far greater power than Zhou Yuan's movement. As payment for Master Tun Tun's teaching, Zhou Yuan gave him a full plate of Genesis meat, while Zhou Yuan continued his training under Yao Yao's guidance. After adjusting his movements, Zhou Yuan was instructed to channel the Genesis Qi he had absorbed into his meridians. This way, Zhou Yuan could gradually open his closed meridians. Unfortunately, this method was somewhat forceful. There was a risk that his meridians could be damaged, so he had to be careful. When Zhou Yuan managed to open his first meridian pulse, he experienced severe fatigue. Yao Yao was puzzled when she saw Zhou Yuan stand up again, showing no signs of exhaustion and still looking vigorous. Zhou Yuan wanted to continue cultivating, but Yao Yao forbade it, explaining that the technique should only be used once a day after a breakthrough, or it could be fatal. However, Zhou Yuan's case was different. Since he was born with all 8 meridians already open, his meridian strength was much greater than that of ordinary people. As Zhou Yuan didn't feel any fatigue, therefore Yao Yao allowed him to continue cultivating. After diligently continuing his training, Zhou Yuan felt he had reached his limit. At the same time, Yao Yao hadn't anticipated that Zhou Yuan would be able to forcibly open his meridians 4 times. Because of this, he was almost ready to reach the second meridian opening level. Beyond that, Chang Yuan had previously mentioned that Yao Yao was quite skilled in Genesis rune comprehension. Zhou Yuan then asked Yao Yao to teach him about Genesis rune to better prepare for the upcoming exam. Initially, Yao Yao refused out of laziness. But after Zhou Yuan promised her some fine wine, they reached an agreement. It turned out, the soul is crucial for improving comprehension and using Genesis runes. Unfortunately, Zhou Yuan's soul hadn't even reached the basic level, the realm of illusion, so he couldn't carve the first-level Genesis runes. Before teaching him, Yao Yao instructed Zhou Yuan to practice the soul-forging technique taught by Chang Yuan called Primal Chaos Divine Technique. To do this, Zhou Yuan had to continuously weaken his soul, transforming it from an invisible state to a virtual form. Following Yao Yao's instructions, it didn't take long for Zhou Yuan to visualize his soul as the Primal Chaos Divine Cultivation space. The space was dark and filled with floating rocks. A mysterious sound also emanated from a wormhole emitting a terrifying power. When Zhou Yuan touched the wormhole, the floating rocks shattered instantly. Clearly, if Zhou Yuan got too close, his body would be destroyed just like the rocks. It was no wonder Chang Yuan had said that one needed great courage to use the Primal Chaos Divine method. The method seemed terrifying, but Zhou Yuan knew that to become stronger, he had to overcome his fear. Zhou Yuan then moved toward the black hole, and upon entering it, he saw the rocks inside shatter into pieces. Just like the rocks, Zhou Yuan also shattered and reappeared outside the black hole. Even though Zhou Yuan's body and soul reformed after being shattered, he had to endure immense pain. This process was called divine punishment, where Zhou Yuan only needed to endure the pain to make his soul stronger. Zhou Yuan then continued to go through this process multiple times, enduring the pain and gradually growing stronger. Meanwhile, in the real world, Yao Yao was astonished to see that Zhou Yuan had reached the soul's realm of illusion so quickly. As soon as Zhou Yuan regained consciousness, Yao Yao asked how many times he had endured divine punishment in the primal chaos space. Zhou Yuan then replied that he had done it 88 times. This number was hard to believe. Not only did he endure such pain, but Zhou Yuan also didn't suffer any soul damage. Having reached the realm of illusion, Yao Yao decided to teach him the understanding of first-level Genesis rune. But first, she asked about the condition of Zhou Yuan's pin given by Chang Yuan. Recently, Zhou Yuan had been feeding the pin with Genesis beast souls, and the first rune on it had appeared. Because of this, Yao Yao instructed him to try sensing the first Genesis rune on his pin and practice controlling it. Following Yao Yao's guidance, Zhou Yuan found that the first Genesis rune on his pin was called Wenwu, which allowed the pin to transform into a large, powerful, and sharp spear in its second mode, while its first mode was a brush for drawing runes. With Zhou Yuan's understanding of Genesis runes starting to take shape, Yao Yao continued teaching him how to draw the Tiger Roar rune, a skill that should be useful in the upcoming exam. These were the methods Zhou Yuan used to prepare for the exam. Finally, the day of the exam arrived. In the first round, the students' battles were matched according to their levels to ensure fairness. At that moment, Yue Wei hurried to meet Zhou Yuan, as they hadn't seen each other for a while due to their preparations. Additionally, Zhou Yuan was proud to see that Yue Wei had already opened her fourth meridian. On the other hand, there were Ling Feng and Qi Yu along with Yu Shi, who were just as arrogant as the two men beside her. Seeing Zhou Yuan participate in the exam, Yu Shi thought he was definitely there just to show off his Genesis runes. At the same time, leaders Chu Tianyang and Xu Hong were also present, and their relationship was quite tense as they exchanged harsh words. In the first match of the first round, the referee announced that Zhou Yuan would face Bai Yuan. Many students thought this was unfair since Bai Yuan was the strongest among the students, having opened his third meridian. Despite Zhou Yuan's skill with Genesis runes, it seemed impossible for him to defeat Bai Yuan. However, Zhou Yuan showed no fear and calmly entered the arena. The fight began with Zhou Yuan mainly avoiding and blocking Bai Yuan's attacks without striking back. Zhou Yuan then suspected this unfair matchup was Qi Yu's doing, but Bai Yuan denied it. Unable to defeat Zhou Yuan, who had a stronger body, Bai Yuan had to use his third meridian to continue the fight. The students watching were certain that, despite Zhou Yuan's physical strength, the fight would end once Bai Yuan used his third meridian. And the fight did end quickly, but not as expected. The victor was Zhou Yuan, who unleashed a spinning kick, sending Bai Yuan flying out of the arena and rendering him unconscious. Thus, Zhou Yuan secured his victory in the first round and advanced to the next round. Because of this, the students were truly surprised to see that Zhou Yuan possessed such a powerful kick. They believed that even without using Genesis runes, Zhou Yuan was already on par with fighters who had reached the third meridian. The great potential Zhou Yuan displayed began to earn him admiration from the other students, and his hard work was finally paying off. On the other hand, Qi Yu claimed that everyone there had been deceived because the spinning kick Zhou Yuan used clearly contained Genesis Qi, which meant he had opened his meridians. At the same time, Lei Jun, who standing next to Qi Yu, could hardly believe that Zhou Yuan, once called useless, could open his meridians. Everyone in the Great Zhou Empire knew that Zhou Yuan couldn't open his meridians. However, Qi Yu wasn't too worried as he was confident that his meridian level wasn't very high yet, and Bai Yuan had only lost due to a moment of carelessness. If Bai Yuan had known that Zhou Yuan had opened his meridians, Qi Yu believed Bai Yuan would have won easily. Seeing Ling Feng next to Qi Yu, Zhou Yuan was certain that they had formed an alliance to bring him down. Meanwhile, Yue asked how many meridians Zhou Yuan had opened, to which Zhou Yuan replied 2, combining this with above-average Genesis rune skills. Yue believed that he could make it into the top 10 in this exam. After that, the first round of the exam continued. Among the students fighting, Ling Feng stood out significantly. Even though he was fighting lower-level students and could have ended the fights easily, his actions looked more like bullying. Angered by this, Zhou Yuan glared at the referee until the referee finally said that the competition was meant for learning, not for harming others or causing severe injury. After this warning, Ling Feng kicked his opponent out of the arena, ending the one-sided fight. Not long after, the first round ended, and out of 80 students, only 40 remained for the second round. In the second round, Yue stood out with her talent, impressing the students with her skills and securing an easy victory. Meanwhile, Qi Yu made arrangements for a student named Shiryu to fight Zhou Yuan. The arrogant Qi Yu also instructed Shiryu to use all his strength from the beginning to end the fight quickly. Shortly after, the fight between Zhou Yuan and Shiryu began, and as planned. Shiryu immediately opened his third meridian, clenched his fists, and charged at Zhou Yuan swiftly. However, Zhou Yuan suddenly disappeared from sight, launched a series of counterattacks, and displayed his prowess as the Dragon Prince. Unable to land a single hit and unable to fight back, Shiryu was terrified of this. Admitting defeat, Shiryu realized he had no chance of winning. Because of this, the students cheered for Zhou Yuan's impressive victory, except for the traitors like Qi Yu and his associates who were plotting against him. Eventually, Qi Yu signaled to eliminate Zhou Yuan. The second round concluded, leaving only 20 students. Next was the third round. The winners of this round would become the top 10 candidates eligible to choose their desired academy. For the first match of the third round, the referee announced that Ling Feng would face Zhou Yuan. Aside from the mismatch, Zhou Yuan hadn't even had a chance to step down from the arena. The unfair fight became the topic of conversation among the students. Facing Ling Feng, who had already opened his fourth meridian, and considering Zhou Yuan had just finished his previous fight, they believed Zhou Yuan had no chance of winning. Meanwhile, Chu Tianyang declared that after that day, he would fire everyone responsible for the exam from the palace, including the referee and all involved. Dean Xu Hong, sipping his drink, thought Chu Tianyang's actions were excessive. However, Chu Tianyang firmly stated that his decisiveness was the mark of a palace leader and told Xu Hong that he had no right to advise him. Seeing the injustice, Yue tried to speak up, but the referee immediately told her to be quiet and not disrupt the upcoming fight. Additionally, Yue also stopped after receiving a signal from Zhou Yuan to remain calm. Before the fight began, Ling Feng revealed that since the beginning, Yue, whom he greatly admired, had never looked at anyone but Zhou Yuan. To gain Yue's recognition, Ling Feng declared he would defeat Zhou Yuan in the most humiliating way possible. Shortly after, the fight began. Everyone watching was surprised because Zhou Yuan was able to hold his own against Ling Feng, who was considered a potential champion. Frustrated by his inability to land a hit, Ling Feng opened his fourth meridian to continue the fight. Although his speed increased significantly, Ling Feng still couldn't land a punch as Zhou Yuan used a skill called Dragon Steps, a genesis technique taught by Yao Yao. By vibrating qi in the air, it created a blinding effect, causing Ling Feng's attacks to miss. To counter Zhou Yuan's strange movements, Ling Feng used a mid-level genesis technique, Dragon Stomp, and managed to land a hit on Zhou Yuan, who almost lost by being pushed close to the edge of the arena. The fight continued, and this time Zhou Yuan used 3 of his best genesis runes simultaneously: Body Lightning Rune, Strength Rune, and Iron Skin Rune. Unfazed, Ling Feng used a mid-level genesis technique, Iron Demon Shield, which seemed to absorb Zhou Yuan's attacks. Among mid-level genesis techniques, Iron Shield was considered the best because it could reflect opponents' attacks. Using it, Ling Feng began to dominate the fight. During the fight, Ling Feng intended to make Zhou Yuan lose using his own power, thus ensuring that his shame would be known throughout the empire. Suddenly, Zhou Yuan stopped moving because the time limit for his genesis runes was almost up. Confident that he could easily defeat Zhou Yuan without the help of genesis runes, Ling Feng focused his energy into his palm and moved toward Zhou Yuan for the final attack. Unexpectedly, this was the perfect time for Zhou Yuan to use his second meridian. An intense fistfight ensued between them, and unexpectedly, it was Ling Feng who got knocked back. Even with only his second meridian, Zhou Yuan's dragon power was more dominant. As a finishing move, Zhou Yuan used a first-class genesis technique, Tiger Roar, taught by Yao Yao, followed by the dragon absorption technique, Mountain Crushing Grip, executed from mid-air, which knocked Ling Feng unconscious and out of the arena. The students were once again in awe of the impressive performance by Zhou Yuan. On the other hand, Dean Shuhong was puzzled because the strength shown by Zhou Yuan was too powerful for someone who had only reached the second meridian, despite the fight being rigged behind the scene. But it was all in vain. Chu Tianyang then ordered the referee to announce Zhou Yuan's victory. This event marked the beginning of the Dragon Prince's journey to reclaim everything lost within the Great Zhou Empire. Meanwhile, Qiyu left the arena in anger as his plan had failed. The scene then shifts to the Qi family residence, where Qiyu reported to his father, Qiu Ant, that Zhou Yuan had opened his second meridian and even managed to defeat Ling Feng, who had reached the fourth meridian. Qiu Ant acknowledged that it was expected for a fallen dragon to rise again and become strong, given the difficult path Zhou Yuan had endured. Qiyu then asked if they should report this to the Great Wu Empire, but Qiu Ant replied that there was no need to report it since the empire was currently at war with other regions. As the Holy Dragon's luck had been taken by Great Wu, and only the poison dragon of hatred remained within Zhou Yuan. Qiu Ant also believed that removing the dragon poison would be very difficult, and he was not worried about some students who should have joined Academy B going to Academy A instead. For years, Qiu Ant had devised a plan that Zhao Qing could not oppose, and a boy who had just opened 2 meridians, like Zhou Yuan, was unlikely to change the situation or disrupt his plan. For him, the most important thing was for Qiyu to secure the first position in the annual exam, as this would further weaken Zhao Qing's position within the empire, ultimately allowing him to take control from the king. Qiu Ant was confident in achieving this, and for Zhou Yuan, he intended to crush him so that the Dragon Prince could never rise again. Switching to Academy A, 3 new students joined, including Yue and Zhou Yuan. Upon their arrival, Zhou Yuan received a formal welcome from the students due to his high status. However, Zhou Yuan asked his seniors to treat him normally and call him by his name, disregarding his background. At that moment, a student named Yang Zai was enthusiastic about Zhou Yuan joining Academy A. The impressive performance previously shown by Zhou Yuan had spread throughout the academy, and Yang Zai believed that Academy A would become even stronger in the future. Shortly after, a hyperactive female student named Song Qiushui was very excited to hear that Zhou Yuan and Yue were joining Academy A. Turned out, Song Qiushui had arrived early in the morning just to welcome the 3 new students, especially since Yue was considered the most beautiful female student among them. Shortly after, Chu Tianyang appeared. After a long period without any talented students joining Academy A, Chu Tianyang was finally able to welcome 3 new students. Therefore, he planned to increase the intensity of the training for his students. Chu Tianyang's sudden announcement caused many students to complain, as the increased training intensity meant they would have to expend more energy during their workouts. This was a significant concern for the students. According to Chu Tianyang, currently, only Yang Zai and Song Qiushui had managed to open their 5th meridian, while the others were still below 4 meridians. If no one could reach the 6th meridian by the end of the year, Academy B would remain at the top position. This would result in a decline in Academy A's standing within the empire and have a significant impact on the situation in the Great Zhou Palace. Therefore, Chu Tianyang wanted all his students to work harder than those in Academy B and elevate Academy A to the top position. As the start of their training, it was to be held at the Jade Waterfall. The Jade Waterfall was said to be a treasure of the Great Zhou Empire. Above the waterfall was a purple jade stone with abundant energy continuously flowing from the waterfall. This energy could be absorbed by people to help open their meridians. The aura emitted by the purple jade was very warm and humid. Even if it reached its limit, it would not damage one's meridians. To assist in the students' training, Chu Tianyang also brought 2 Genesis rune masters from the palace. Therefore, he urged the students not to waste this rare opportunity. Before starting the training, the students lined up neatly, waiting to receive the concentration rune from the rune masters. By using this rune, they could absorb the energy from the purple jade more efficiently. Meanwhile, Zhou Yuan took Yue to the front of the Jade Waterfall, which made her wonder why he was going there instead of queuing like the other students to get the concentration rune. It turned out, Zhou Yuan felt that they had plenty of free time, so he decided to use this opportunity to explore the waterfall further. Without any hesitation, Zhou Yuan jumped into the cave behind the waterfall. As soon as he entered, he could feel the strong pressure from the purple jade's energy flowing through the water. The power was felt deep within his meridians. Zhou Yuan then tried to independently absorb the purple jade's energy flowing continuously. As this was why one had to first inscribe the concentration rune on their body before training in the waterfall. Zhou Yuan then continued his cultivation, taking advantage of his soul level, which had reached the illusion realm. He was confident this would help him absorb the energy flowing from the waterfall. Shortly after, Song Qiushui approached Yue, who was standing alone in front of the waterfall. Apparently, Yue was bored from waiting in the long and tedious queue, while Song Qiushui was surprised to find Zhou Yuan inside the waterfall. The impact of the waterfall was also very strong. When Song Qiushui first entered, she could barely withstand the pressure from the waterfall's energy, and now Zhou Yuan was inside without using the concentration rune. Because of this, Song Qiushui thought that Zhou Yuan would not last long and would soon come out. After waiting for a while, Song Qiushui was puzzled as to why Zhou Yuan had not come out yet, even though a stick of incense had burned out. To this day, Song Qiushui had never seen any student endure that long when first entering the Jade Waterfall. Therefore, Song Qiushui decided to report this to Chu Tianyang. However, before she could make the report, Zhou Yuan emerged from the waterfall. After experiencing the method of enduring the waterfall's pressure using his soul, Zhou Yuan realized it was indeed possible, but it was very exhausting. Unfortunately, when combined with the concentration rune, Zhou Yuan was confident that the results would be even more optimal. Zhou Yuan, who was approached by Yue and Song Qiushui while lying down, immediately got up. At that moment, Song Qiushui was astonished that Zhou Yuan could endure 15 minutes under the waterfall, even though it was his first time. Afterwards, they all returned to the queue. Zhou Yuan then met Chu Tianyang, where he asked for permission to leave with Yue. Thus, Zhou Yuan took her to meet someone he referred to as a senior. Before introducing Yue to the senior, Zhou Yuan asked Yue to wait a moment. Curious, Yue peeked and saw a woman in a pavilion with a beautiful figure, hair, and face, who was Yao Yao. It turned out, Yao Yao was drawing a Genesis rune in a landscape painting. The method Yao Yao used appeared very complex, while Yue, watching from a distance, felt sad because Zhou Yuan seemed so close to her. Meanwhile, Zhou Yuan felt dizzy after looking at a painting of Yao Yao, a side effect of observing a higher-level Genesis rune, so Yao Yao immediately helped him. Because of this, Yu Wei felt even more distressed seeing the closeness between Zhou Yuan and Yao Yao. Zhou Yuan's visit to Yao Yao was related to the Genesis rune, specifically the concentration rune. Zhou Yuan then requested Yao Yao to explain it in detail, and to ensure she couldn't refuse, he had brought a bottle of wine as a gift. After receiving the wine, Yao Yao asked Zhou Yuan to undress. On the other hand, Yu Wei was increasingly shocked when she saw Zhou Yuan and Yao Yao undressing. The concentration rune to be inscribed by Yao Yao was the rune of fire and ice. It was said to be the best among the level 1 Genesis runes, but it would be quite painful when inscribed on the body. During the process, Zhou Yuan felt very strange as the energies of fire and ice simultaneously entered his body. To distract him from the pain, Zhou Yuan was allowed to talk. He asked how many Genesis runes Yao Yao could inscribe on his body, where Yao Yao replied that currently, she could only draw up to level 3 runes, but if Zhou Yuan became stronger, he could try for level 4 runes. Level 4 runes were quite powerful, equivalent to practitioners who had reached the Heavenly Gate realm. With this in mind, Zhou Yuan thought that he might end up receiving protection from Yao Yao instead of the other way around. However, according to her, Zhou Yuan didn't need to protect her now, rather in the future. The power of the fire and ice runes entering Zhou Yuan's body made him groan in pain. The sound of his groans made Yu Wei even more mistaken about the situation. The effect of absorbing the ice and fire Genesis runes was better than using the soul alone. After that, Zhou Yuan mentioned that he also had a friend who needed Yao Yao's help, and his friend was also a woman. Zhou Yuan was confident that Yao Yao would get along well with her. After getting permission, Zhou Yuan then asked Yu Wei to come in. Yu Wei then walked in awkwardly, as she felt that she had just interrupted their activities. After receiving an explanation, Yu Wei finally realized that she had been mistaken. Zhou Yuan then explained that Yao Yao was just inscribing the Genesis rune of fire and the concentration rune on his body. Additionally, Zhou Yuan had also obtained permission for Yu Wei to enter the residence. At that moment, Yu Wei asked why Zhou Yuan was also going in there, even into the room. So Yao Yao directly asked him to leave. Yao Yao and Yu Wei then introduced themselves to each other. From then on, Yu Wei addressed Yao Yao as older sister, and like Zhou Yuan, for the concentration rune, Yu Wei was asked to remove her clothes, and the process began. At that moment, Yao Yao found it strange that the effects of absorbing the ice and fire Genesis runes on Yu Wei's body were better than on Zhou Yuan's. It was as if there were two vastly different powers within her body. After the process is complete, they would return to the academy, but Zhou Yuan plans to take Yu Wei to see the Jade Waterfall first. Since each academy has a specified time limit for using the Jade Waterfall, which is only open every 2 days for 3 hours, plus the time spent in line. Additionally, Chu Tianyang hopes that his students can practice enduring the waterfall for a longer time and make the most of it during this limited period. During their training, Shu Hong and his proud disciple arrived. Arrogantly, Shu Hong also brought the deans from Academies C and D, even though there was still plenty of time left for Academy A to use the waterfall. At that moment, Shu Hong explained that the reason for their visit was because everyone felt that the allocation of time for the Jade Waterfall was very unfair. The waterfall could only be used for 8 hours over 2 days. Compared to other academies, Academy A had an additional 3 hours to use the place. Shu Hong said that while Academy A used to deserve being the strongest, in his opinion, the current weakened Academy A did not deserve the extra time for using the waterfall. Since Academy A was no longer the best academy, they should allocate the extra time to other academies. Hearing this, Chu Tianyang stated that the time allocation rules were set by the king from the start, so if anyone wanted to change it, they would need to appeal to the king. Shu Hong then responded that there was no need to go to the king because, as a member of Zhou Yuan's family, Chu Tianyang should be able to distribute the time directly without using the king's identity as a shield. This statement made Chu Tianyang even more enraged, as if Shu Hong was disregarding the king's role entirely. Meanwhile, to put pressure on Shu Hong, Chu Tianyang displayed his strength, which had reached the Heavenly Gate level. The second-tier red energy he emitted frightened the students as he was ready to use forceful measures. Shu Hong, not wanting to be outdone, also demonstrated his ice power. On the other hand, during their journey to the Jade Waterfall, Zhou Yuan felt that the ice and fire runes created by Yao Yao were very powerful, making his back feel heavy. It turned out that this sensation was due to the mischievous Tun Tun. Throughout the journey, Tun Tun had been on Zhou Yuan's back unnoticed. The mischievous Tun Tun even lightly hit Zhou Yuan's face to avoid Zhou Yuan's anger. Tun Tun then put on a sad face, so Zhou Yuan couldn't respond and took out some Genesis beast meat. But instead of giving it to Tun Tun, he ate it himself. Feeling deceived, Tun Tun got angry, so Yao Yao mentioned that if Tun Tun got really angry, he could swallow someone alive. Unfortunately, Yao Yao had never seen this happen before. Soon after, there was a commotion as some people reported that a fight had broken out between the deans of Academy A and B. Academy B, which always oppressed Academy A, was trying to claim their time at the Jade Waterfall. Switching to the Jade Waterfall, the clash of power between Chu Tianyang and Shu Hong continued, although neither had started fighting yet. However, the pressure from the powers they were emitting was already affecting the surrounding area. To defuse the situation, the deans of Academies C and D spoke up. Given that both individuals had reached the Heavenly Gate realm, they feared that a battle could have a negative impact on the Jade Waterfall. That's why the other deans asked Chu Tianyang and Shu Hong to stop immediately. After activating their powers, Chu Tianyang firmly stated that he would never agree to Shu Hong's unilateral wish to allocate training time at the Jade Waterfall. Meanwhile, Chiyu said that Shu Hong's proposal was not aimed only at Academy A but at all students in the Great Zhou Palace. In the past, Academy A was indeed the most favored academy and deserved the exclusive extra time. Unfortunately, that was in the past, and now Academy A had significantly declined, making it unfair for them to have too much training time there. As the ruler of the palace and dean of Academy A, Chu Tianyang's decision was deemed irrational by Chiyu and would hinder the training of other, more competent students. Chiyu also argued that Academy A's students were incompetent and would only waste resources. Amid the debate, Zhou Yuan intervened, stating that according to the rules, if Academy B wanted to take the top position from Academy A, they would need to win 3 consecutive times in the annual imperial exams. Shu Hong's request was premature, but he was already trying to undermine the position of Dean A. In addition to supporting Zhou Yuan's words, many students were focused on Yao Yao. They were surprised to see such a beautiful woman in the Great Zhou Empire. However, Chiyu had not yet given up. According to him, Academy A had lost its top position for 2 consecutive years. The same would likely happen for the 3rd year as well, and the superiority of Academy A was only a matter of the noble's words. Zhou Yuan was confident that Academy A would regain its top position this year. Chiyu remained convinced that the outcome was already determined. Academy B would take first place, with only a few months left until the annual exams, and everything Academy A did until now would be in vain. Rather than continuing the endless debate, Chiyu proposed a bet. Each academy would send a representative, and the one who lasts the longest in the waterfall would win. Unexpectedly, the bet was not favorable to Academy A, as Academy B would send Chiyu, who had reached the 6th meridian. However, Zhou Yuan boldly asked what they would wager. The terms of the bet were that if Academy B won, Academy A would be required to give 1.5 hours of their training time at the Jade Waterfall. Half an hour would be allocated to Academies C and D, while Academy A would only have 1 hour. Additionally, Chiyu intentionally used his victory to win the favor of the other dean. If Academy B lost, they would only have to give Academy A 1.5 hours of their time. Meanwhile, Zhou Yuan apologized to everyone for making a unilateral decision. He did so because he was confident he could win. At the same time, everyone felt uneasy seeing Zhou Yuan have to endure against Chiyu, but among them, Yao Yao was confident that he would surely win. On the other hand, Yu Shi from Academy B was very sure that Chiyu would win, as Zhou Yuan, who had only opened 2 meridians, was already impressive for lasting 30 minutes, while Chiyu, who had reached the 6th meridian, could last a full hour. Before the competition, Chiyu urged Zhou Yuan to surrender before Zhou Yuan revealed his embarrassment. Rather than talking much, Zhou Yuan directly entered the back of the waterfall, followed by Chiyu, who secretly carried a purple pill. Both of them began their cultivation. Unlike before, after using Yao Yao's ice and fire rune, Zhou Yuan could now absorb 10 times the amount of purple jade energy flowing in the waterfall. After a while of cultivation, Zhou Yuan could also feel that the purple jade energy was causing his 3rd meridian to loosen, which meant he would soon open his 3rd meridian. That was the good news, but the bad news was that during the meridian opening process, Zhou Yuan found it difficult to withstand external attacks. Not long after, Half an hour had passed. At that time, Dean Shuhong thought that Zhou Yuan, who still had not come out, was desperately enduring under the waterfall. He believed that Zhou Yuan had pushed himself too hard, causing his body to suffer damage and resulting in a significant loss. At the same time, Yao Yao reassured Yue not to worry, as she was confident that Zhou Yuan would not lose. Inside the waterfall, Qiyu observed that Zhou Yuan was still trying to endure, while his sixth meridian strength was nearing its limit. However, Qiyu had prepared a plan for such a situation. Qiyu then swallowed the purple pill he had secretly kept. The pill, called Soul Strengthening Pill, could temporarily elevate him to the illusory soul realm and help him withstand the continuous pressure of the purple jade energy. At that moment, Qiyu saw Zhou Yuan starting to exhibit strange signs, with the rate of energy absorption by Zhou Yuan increasing. Outside the waterfall, based on the genesis chi emitted by Zhou Yuan, Chu Tianyang was very confident that he was now in the process of opening his third meridian. The genesis energy consumed to open a meridian was substantial, and Zhou Yuan might not be able to last much longer. Laughing, Shu Hong then thanked Chu Tianyang for letting Academy A give more time to the other academies, as he claimed that victory was already in sight in this Jade Waterfall training. On the other hand, Qiyu, who realized that Zhou Yuan was opening his third meridian, did not want to miss the opportunity to destroy Zhou Yuan from within. Qiyu then entered Zhou Yuan into the illusory realm and unleashed a soul needle attack, a method used to destroy the opponent's soul. Because of this, Zhou Yuan was somewhat surprised at how Qiyu's soul could be stronger than before. Zhou Yuan then formed a golden barrier to withstand the soul attack. It was highly disadvantageous for Zhou Yuan, who was now in a vulnerable state, and he had to endure the attack. Despite his efforts, the golden barrier was eventually shattered. At that moment, Zhou Yuan managed to break through the limitation of his third meridian, creating a chi explosion that could be felt by those outside the waterfall. In the soul realm, Qiyu believed that he had won because Zhou Yuan's soul was no longer before him. However, contrary to his belief, the soul realm Qiyu entered immediately transformed into a horrifying space with a grim scene that frightened anyone who saw it directly. It turned out, this was Zhou Yuan's primal chaos realm, which terrified Qiyu until he was drawn into a black hole, while his physical body was thrown out of the waterfall unconscious. At the same time, this was a sight that was truly unbelievable to the people of Academy B. While Zhou Yuan emerged from the waterfall shortly afterward, feeling quite comfortable. Zhou Yuan also urged Dean Shuhong to announce the winner immediately, as the outcome was already determined, acknowledging defeat and complying with the rules set by Academy B itself. The students of Academy B were somewhat annoyed with Qiyu for losing in his own bet, and his actions had negatively impacted their training. Unfortunately, Yu Shi from Academy B, who was unwilling to admit defeat, claimed that Zhou Yuan must have cheated and made accusations without clear evidence. Dean Shuhong also supported this, expressing surprise that Zhou Yuan had cheated and even dared to harm Qiyu. Calmly, Zhou Yuan reported to Chu Tianyang that Qiyu had used a soul needle to attack him first, so what happened to Qiyu now was a consequence of his own actions. Unlike Yu Shi, who made baseless accusations, Zhou Yuan had solid proof, which was the mark on Qiyu's forehead showing the use of a level 1 soul needle genesis rune seal, allowing his soul to temporarily enter the illusory soul realm. Because of this, Qiyu's disgraceful actions then became a topic of discussion among the students, who were surprised that someone who had reached the 6th meridian would resort to such underhanded methods. Yu Shi, hearing the gossip among the students, left while carrying the unconscious Qiyu in frustration. Chu Tianyang also thanked Dean Shuhong for generously giving Academy A an additional hour and a half of training time. Before leaving, Zhou Yuan requested Chu Tianyang to allocate the extra half hour they received to Academies C and D. Hearing this, Chu Tianyang agreed. Thus, Zhou Yuan succeeded in gaining support from those who had previously supported Academy B. The scene then shifted to Qiyu's residence. After suffering defeat in the endurance contest at the Jade Waterfall, Qiyu angrily threw things around his room. Shortly afterward, Yu Shi came to help calm his anger. Yu Shi then said that Zhou Yuan's victory was merely due to the soul realm and luck. If their physical strengths were compared, Qiyu would have easily won. It turned out, Qiyu was very upset because the reputation he had built painstakingly in the Great Zhou Palace had been ruined by Zhou Yuan. Because of this, Yu Shi urged Qiyu to stay calm, suggesting that what he needed to do next was to destroy Zhou Yuan during the Imperial Annual Exam, making him experience what he felt now. Switching to the Jade Waterfall, since Qi Yu was defeated by Zhou Yuan, the students of Academy A had been training even harder. With the increasing training time at the Jade Waterfall, the rate of meridian opening among the students had seen a significant improvement. Of course, this was all thanks to Zhou Yuan. At the same time, a purple light shimmered from behind the waterfall, indicating that someone had successfully opened a meridian. It turned out to be Yu Wei, the woman who was said to be extremely talented and had now managed to open her 5th meridian. Thus, Academia now had 5 people who had reached their 5th meridian. Hearing that Yu Wei had broken through her limit, Zhou Yuan was determined not to be left behind. He increased the intensity of his training by activating his soul power to aid in absorbing the purple jade energy. Because of this, Yang Zai lamented that Zhou Yuan had started cultivating late, and now he had just reached the 3rd meridian, with only a few months left before the imperial annual exam. Chu Tianyang then asked Yang Zai to call the other students, as their training time at this location was almost over. As everyone began to leave, Yu Wei, who was still there, saw a purple glow indicating that Zhou Yuan would soon be making a breakthrough. Meanwhile, Zhao Qing was very proud of Zhao Yuan for successfully opening his 4th meridian in such a short time. As the result, he was considered highly worthy of being a direct descendant of the Zhou family. However, instead of appearing pleased, Zhou Yuan looked more like someone deep in thought. After a moment of contemplation, Zhou Yuan explained that the opening of the next meridian would not be as quick as the previous ones, as he felt that the energy from the Jade Waterfall was no longer effective for him. To open the 5th meridian quickly, Zhou Yuan would need to find another method. If Zhou Yuan remained at his current level, the power gap between him and Qi Yu would widen even further. It was possible that his opponent had reached the 7th meridian and would no longer be stoppable by him. With this problem, Yao Yao had a solution to accelerate the meridian opening. As she was familiar with a level 1 rune genesis called the 36 Outer Meridian Monster Rune, the requirement to use it was to have the essence and blood of 36 level 1 monsters. Once inscribed on the body, the evil spirits in the blood could be used to open the meridian. However, because it involved negative power, the method suggested by Yao Yao had a high risk for those who lacked strong determination. There was a risk of being consumed by the evil spirits and eventually going mad. Knowing this, Qin Yu advised her son to think carefully before using this method. For now, Zhou Yuan was still inexperienced and did not fully understand the dangers of cultivating on this path. If Zhou Yuan was afraid of the terrifying power of Genesis monsters, he might not be able to endure the difficult times that could come at any moment. Since Zhou Yuan intended to use this method, his father would send someone to bring the essence of the 36 level 1 Genesis monsters. However, Zhou Yuan immediately refused because he intended to find the necessary monsters with his own strength, as he felt it would be pointless to grow stronger if he did not have real combat experience and could not use his power properly. Not long after, the solo monster hunting day for Zhou Yuan began. As protection from dangerous monsters in the Black Forest, Zhao Qing also sent a team led by Commander Lu to accompany him, and the hunt commenced. When Zhou Yuan encountered a level 1 Genesis monster one-on-one, the creature suddenly fled upon seeing Yao Yao and Tun Tun arriving. It seemed the creature was afraid of them. After walking a short distance into the forest, Zhou Yuan set up their camp right next to a river, as he planned to continue hunting. Zhou Yuan intended to ask a few people to guard Yao Yao at the location, but she felt it was unnecessary, as she believed that she and Tun Tun alone were more than enough. Meanwhile, around the area of King Qi's palace, there was an uproar because 2 thieves had stolen valuable items from within the palace. After being pursued by several guards, the 2 thieves managed to escape. It turned out that these thieves were hired by Qi Yu, as he was now executing a plan related to Zhou Yuan going into the Black Forest. Soon after, a man named Qi Ling reported that the hired thieves had successfully escaped the pursuit. Consequently, everyone would soon know that a treasure had been stolen from the Qi Palace. Qi Yu then instructed Qi Ling to lead his troops to the Black Forest to capture the thief, who was Zhou Yuan that he intended to destroy. Several days passed, and Zhou Yuan was now fighting his 15th Genesis monster. After defeating the Horned Genesis monster, Zhou Yuan had to battle a Genesis snake, which was easily executed by throwing the second mode of the Tian Yuan pin, making it his 16th monster. Not far from the location, among the Imperial Guards of Zhou, there were also people from Qi Yu. At that moment, Qi Ling received a report that the thieves were now moving toward their target, and what they all needed to do next was to head towards Commander Lu and create more commotion there. That night, while Yao Yao was playing in the river, Zhou Yuan returned home carrying his previous hunt. At the beginning of his hunting days, Zhou Yuan always came back with injuries, but now he had become more skilled and was not injured by the monsters at all. Yao Yao then asked Zhou Yuan to take the blood and heart of the Genesis monsters he hunted because these parts contained the most powerful monster spirits that would help him advance to the next Meridian level. After completing the task, Zhou Yuan gave the needed essence to Yao Yao and continued his hunt elsewhere. Meanwhile, the two hired thieves managed to escape the guards when the focus of Commander Lu's troops was diverted by Qi Ling and his men. Qi Ling then said he did not expect to meet Commander Lu in the forest. Qi Ling also explained that his reason for entering the forest was to chase the thieves who stole treasure from the Qi Palace. To Commander Lu, Qi Ling's explanation sounded ridiculous because it was unimaginable that anyone would dare to steal from the palace. Qi Ling also mentioned that he had to enter the forest because King Qi had ordered him to recover the stolen treasure and impose severe punishment on the thieves. That's why he hoped that Commander Lu would not make things difficult for him. Commander Lu then clarified that there was no one in the forest except for the noble Zhou Yuan, who was doing his training. Even if they had to fight there, Commander Lu would engage because Qi Ling's behavior was highly suspicious. Unfortunately, Qi Ling seemed to be playing a drama, causing Zhou Yuan's side to be disadvantaged. On the other hand, Yao Yao was still around the campsite with Tun Tun by the river. From another direction, two thieves were watching her. One of the thieves instructed his subordinate to handle Zhou Yuan alone, considering he was only at the 4th meridian. The thief felt his subordinate was sufficient to deal with him, while the other thief would handle Yao Yao. Reluctantly, the subordinate agreed but asked his friend not to kill Yao Yao too quickly, and then they both went their separate ways. Tun Tun, who was relaxing, immediately woke up when the thief approached. At that moment, Yao Yao asked Tun Tun to show a little of its fangs, but the thief was not afraid at all when he saw the small animal like Tun Tun trying to confront him. Unexpectedly, when the thief intended to step on Tun Tun, he suddenly transformed into a giant and terrifying creature. Meanwhile, Zhou Yuan, who had just finished his 17th hunt, was suddenly attacked. Because of this, he immediately threw his hunted monster toward the source of the previous attack, and it was predictable that the attacker was one of the thieves. Since the man who appeared in front of Zhou Yuan had bypassed Commander Lu's guard, Zhou Yuan was very certain that something had happened in the area where the commander was stationed. The thief also mentioned Yao Yao, which made Zhou Yuan furious, leading to a fierce battle between them. After engaging in combat without using his meridian, the thief was surprised that Zhou Yuan, who was below him, was actually stronger. This forced the thief to activate his meridian. While the thief used the Black Footprint Genesis technique, Zhou Yuan employed the Earth Splitter Genesis technique. This was a mid-range level 1 Shin class attack, causing the thief to fail in executing his technique as he was hit by Zhou Yuan's attack first. Having previously underestimated Zhou Yuan, the thief was now determined to fight seriously. The thief drew dual swords and used the Shadow Step technique, moving quickly toward his opponent. Meanwhile, Zhou Yuan swiftly activated the Tiger Roar technique. On the other hand, Commander Lu, who was detained by Qi Ling, suddenly heard the sound of the Tiger Roar rune, indicating that Zhou Yuan was in trouble. While Qi Ling considered his task to be completed. Moral lesson from the story: always queue for your turn and don't skip the line. Otherwise, you might end up stuck with a waterfall of problems and a very soggy reputation. And remember, if you don't follow the rules, you might end up like the thief who tried to steal a nap instead of a treasure. Both ended up getting a surprise.